Please join me in giving a warm applause to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Indonesia. Please be seated.
Vice President Director of the Development Indonesia. Could you please take a seat here? Ms. Maudy Ayunda, our youth representative, and Ms. Sigrid Shen. Our last speaker is Ms. Maudy Ayunda. As Pak Heru mentioned, she's also like Rafi, the future of our planet. And I think I should say something about Ms. Maudy Ayunda. Maudy is an international bachelor diploma graduate with exceptional 43 ID points out of 45. And from the British International School in Jakarta. And she been accepted in lots of very high-ranked university, one among others, Brown University, Columbia, NYU, and also 5 universities in the UK. But she's now going and prepare herself enroll to Columbia University and starting next fall taking economics as her major. She's also one of our Miss Indonesia prominent actress, and her last single is about Proud Kertas, one of the quite popular, most popular songs lately in Indonesia. The floor is yours, Ms. Maudy, and 10 minutes.
Thank you for the very kind introduction. Good morning, honorable and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as well as my fellow peers. My name is Maudy. I am 17 years old and I have just graduated from high school. I haven't quite started my university studies, but I hope that despite, or rather due to my limited experience, I would still be able to provide a fresh perspective on economic development, and more particularly, stand on behalf of my peers and friends out there with the specific emphasis on youth empowerment in the shape of job creation. I think that we have easily agreed upon that issues of poverty and job creation are very much interrelated with one another, almost in an inevitable pattern. I shall use my country, Indonesia, as an example. Although Indonesia's poverty levels, based on official statistics, have improved during the years, settling at 12% of the population living under the national poverty line this year, we can see that the improvements aren't very significant. This is foreseeable, as people who are in poverty tend to stay trapped in poverty, as due to financial conditions, they are unable to educate themselves or members of their family, therefore unable to acquire good quality jobs, and therefore unable to attain higher standards of living, and so goes on the cycle. Now, this is very worrying, and it can be concluded that my generation and the generations to come hold a significant weight of burden as we involuntarily inherit the already deeply embedded issues of economic development and growth that I have previously mentioned. Meanwhile, currently, I think that we as the young generation are far from prepared. When it comes to poverty and youth unemployment, we are handicapped by two significant barriers. The first, in some cases, is the lack of capability to afford or consistently employ oneself to education, as well as the lack of access to education. This mostly applies to children and young people who, due to their parents' financial shortages or lack of information or physical immobility, are unable to go to school. This we see often in cases of extreme poverty and can be more obviously seen around us. This is also an issue close to my heart, as it was something I came to acknowledge in the last 2 years of my schooling, where I got involved in several social projects as part of the community and service aspect of the IB diploma. One of these projects looked to providing a free school called Scola Visa for children in a nearby community who either couldn't afford access or lacks the knowledge of the government's policies and endowments for education. Here I realized that the problem was more complicated than I thought. The Indonesian government has spent a mandatory amount of 20% of government spending towards improving education, and yet the supposed benefits are not yet felt by the majority of people who need it most. Schools are built, primary education made free, but people in extreme poverty are still deprived of either access or even the knowledge that such things are provided. Scola Bisa only consisted of 40 students and a few teachers, but it shows that how something very little can contribute to the lives of 40 students who perhaps in the future will become successful entrepreneurs, successful pilots, engineers, who could then contribute back to the economy and society. I could only imagine the impacts of even more communities and the government looking at reaching out and making sure that not only policies are made, but that approaches are done to make sure that the resources through these policies are allocated and directed right where they should be. The second barrier that I'd like to talk about is perhaps less obvious, but in my opinion, it holds as much, if not greater, significance, especially through what I have experienced. As someone young, I'm very thankful that I've given the chance to acquire some independence earlier than my peers through the career I currently maintain. As both a student and an entertainer, I've been able to earn an income as well as hold the ability to steer my own paths and projects. Through it, I have been able to share and do something I love as well as contribute to my society, although perhaps in a smaller way. In this sense, I've been very lucky. Also, from entering the working industry early on, I have met a lot of young people who are less lucky. Despite having graduated from either an undergraduate or even a graduate degree, they cannot maximize their respective potentials. I see a law graduate working as a camerawoman. I see a cum laude graduate unemployed. I see young people my age helpless as they struggle to find jobs that fit their respective interests and fail to. And lastly, I see young people giving up as they have no other alternative. I stand here today and on behalf of my fellow friends out there and ask that communities, the government, and perhaps other institutions and private sectors to realize the increasing need to support the allocation or even the generation of independent, open-minded, and ready employed individuals with a collective conscience in the youth labor force. My proposed solution is that this should be achieved by simultaneous action by both the government and communities as a form of active citizenship and governance. A possible solution to solve the disparity in youth employment I've outlined previously could be through, perhaps, I may suggest the changes in local school curriculums. As a student who has both studied in a local school and an international school, I've come to realize that the approaches to learning in local Indonesian schools takes mere emphasis on memorization and data-based questioning. This, in my opinion, gives too little room for creative expansion. Instead, studies in local schools should perhaps be centered around the idea of analysis, problem solving, essay writing, independent projects, and open communication. Studies which would better prepare students for employment, be it for themselves or others.
Excuse me, one moment.
Okay. Possibly even things like music, art, photography, design, and theater should be considered as real subjects, so that students are given more alternatives as what they can do to survive in life. This is also something us as citizens, the civil society, the private sector, and other institutions can possibly contribute with. I should like to see more and more youth-oriented programs or conventions, forums, talking about alternative ways of being productive and independent through entrepreneurship perhaps or other alternatives. Perhaps then we wouldn't have to see cases in which young people give in to unemployment just because they couldn't find a job. Therefore, I believe and hope that we as a nation, or groups of nations rather, could work together to empower young people in various ways, so that in the future, our world and our economies are placed in the hands of independent problem solvers, open-minded individuals. Although I know that my speech was very much concentrated on one particular concern and that cases differ from one country to the next, I hope that this is a vision that can be shared and highlighted in the Post-2015 program through global partnership. Lastly, as a representative of the younger generation, I would like to say that it has been a great pleasure that the importance of our involvement has been highlighted, especially since, as the younger generation and future decision makers, these issues are highly relevant and affect us directly. I hope that from my speech I provided a perspective that can contribute in evaluating and creating a better foundation for the post-2015 program. Thank you very much.